Hello and welcome to the Catch a Lift Coaches Corner. I'm CAL Program Director and Coach Melissa Luke, and this week I'm honored to introduce the replay of episode 45 of the Coaches Corner featuring retired U.S. Army Colonel Monica Harwig. Monica has commanded at all levels of the U.S. Army and Army Reserves. Monica was the Battalion Commander in Afghanistan for Corporal Christopher Coughlan, who the Catch a Lift Fund was founded in memory of. We thank Monica for sharing her story and light with all of us. We thank ID Technologies for their support of the Coaches Corner podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the Coaches Corner podcast. Now let's sit back and hear from Monica. Monica, welcome to the Coaches Corner. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm really glad to be here, and I've never done a podcast, and I'm just honored that you guys asked me to do this. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. It's our pleasure. So a lot of stuff we want to cover with you today, Monica. I'd like to start today by having you go back a bit and tell us a little bit about your life growing up and ultimately what led you to the Army.
Okay, so my life growing up, I was born in Texas, and I lived here in Texas until 7th grade when we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so when I was in Texas, I was lucky as a kid. I lived on 37 acres in a single wide trailer. So as you can imagine, I had a lot of good adventures. And yeah, it was fun. My dad, he took us canoeing on the Brazos River. We camped out. I went to a small school, 50 kids, 1st through 8th grade country school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was unique. And I think the great thing about that was that there weren't enough boys for the teams. Like you wanted to play dodgeball, softball, basketball. They had to let the girls play with them, right? So I was always on the team, one part of the guys, and it was just second nature to me. And I think maybe that's why, the military, I just had no qualm about going in.
Right.
When we moved to Albuquerque, the big city, my graduating class was 800. So I was in the big city. And I definitely enjoy the country better, and so what led me to the Army was that my dad, he said I needed to pay for my school. So in order to do that, I babysat before, and then when I was 16, I got those full-time summer jobs, and I put all of the money in the bank. And after a while, I realized this is only going to pay for the first year of college if I'm lucky. So then I started looking at scholarships. And so I played the flute and really loved playing it, music. I was in the All-State Symphonic Orchestra and bands and all that. But I found that I could only get a partial scholarship for music. And then I looked at the academies, and they gave you a full scholarship for, 4 years, full room and board, right? And tuition. And all you owed was 5 years, working for the Army afterwards. So I was like, that sounds like a good deal. I don't have to worry about looking for a job after college.
Right.
In the Army. So that's what got me started. Yeah.
Wow. And so, Monica, at that point, did you know then you'd be going in as an officer?
Yes. Well, when I enlisted in a service, March 1985 is when I first went active duty.
Okay.
But before that, I attended West Point July 1980. And so I was there for 1.5 years. That's an engineering. Back then, it was just you were getting an engineering degree. I am not that fond of math.
Okay.
After a year and a half, I transferred to Eastern New Mexico University, and I was in the Army ROTC program. So I graduated from that. That's how I got in the Army. And but West Point from there I saw that I wanted to be an officer when I attended West Point. So that was my goal. So that's how I did it.
Monica, let me ask you, what do you remember from that year and a half that you were at West Point?
Back then it was, there weren't very many. I was one of the first classes of women. And so you're kind of like a pioneer, right? And it was difficult. You got yelled at a lot. Amazing. I was in a company A1 by plebe year. That's my first year. And they say that's the be straight or be gone. Like that's the most strat company. So, it was difficult, but it was also a good experience. I did want to become an officer after that. There's so much history there. And I think looking back that was a good thing for me to experience, later on in the Army when things are tough, right?
Right.
You got to stick it out, right? So, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And, to think, like you said, you're one of the first classes of women coming through. I mean, What an incredible piece of history to be a part of, Monica. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. But then again, like I said, from my childhood, I kind of thought, why is this a big deal? But it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So talk to us about, so you go and you finish out ROTC. What happens after that for you?
Okay. Well, after ROTC, I went on active duty in March of 1985. And then I served for 28 years total. 17 years of those were active duty years, and then the rest of those were part-time reserve years. I was 4 years active duty, then got off, married. I married my husband. We both met as lieutenants at Fort Hood. And they weren't going to station us together, despite saying, hey, get your marriage certificate and we'll station together. A lie.
Wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. So he went to Germany, and so I'm like, I'm going with him. So I got out, but then I stayed in the reserves and served. Okay. So I'm very glad I did that, because I enjoyed the reserves. I was in intelligence. I've always enjoyed doing that. And then until after people, I was a normal part-time reservist until 9/11, and then it was pretty much full-time. That's when I got all that active duty, because the phone just kept on ringing, and I was like,
right.
Well, they need me, so I'll just, deploy and but just be on active.
Right. Yep. Right. So that makes sense. Stepping back a minute here, Monica, because we're going to dive in a minute here, into those post 9/11 years that you're speaking about. So you spent those 4 years on active duty. Would you talk to us a little bit about being a young lieutenant, and what would you remember of that time, or if there's any lessons that you learned that you were able to carry through your career?
Sure. Okay. So when I was a second lieutenant, my first assignment was in Korea, and I was a headquarters commander. The battalion commander, I guess he had a rule of the new intelligence officers. He gave them the job of HHD commander, but that was is a learning experience. And one thing I learned that's a very good lesson, and that's good to learn those lessons when you're a lieutenant, right? You're allowed to make mistakes. But we had an inspection coming up, and I had a supply sergeant, and I said, he says, hey, man, we are good to go. We are going to pass 100%, flying colors, everything's good.
Yes.
Okay, check. And then the inspection occurred, and they found pyrotechnics in the Connex. And those were not on our books, and they were not authorized. And I have no idea. The supply decided that to put pyrotechnics and not take them out of the Connex.
Oh my gosh.
So after that, I learned from that experience that always trust but verify. So every inspection after that, several weeks before, I was physically looking at everything on the book to expect. And then from that forward, we did pretty good on inspections, because I learned experience.
Yeah, you learned that. Oh my gosh. So Monica, like you mentioned, you were an intelligence officer. Would you explain to us what exactly that means, or what an intelligence officer does?
Right. There's a lot of areas that intelligence officers work in, but the main thing is what we do is we're the expert on the tactics, techniques, and procedures of the enemy. We're supposed to know everything about the enemy, and so we are on the staff, and that's our primary role, is being on the staff as the intelligence officer. And so we provide everything that the commander wants, the operations section wants, on the enemy, whether it's order of battle, sensors, our friendly sensors, anything, the country, what it's like, anything that they want, we're the experts in.
Thank you for talking to us about that, Monica. Hopping ahead a bit here to that 9/11 timeframe. As we know, everything changed in the country for us, and especially in the service. Now all of a sudden we're at war. Talk to us about what it was like for you. You're in the reserves post 9/11 and kind of leading us up into Afghanistan. What happened for you?
Okay, so after 9/11, I didn't live too far from here. Everybody, I guess, remembers that day vividly, right? I was jogging with my husband, working out, beautiful day, and then that happened. And my phone didn't stop ringing afterwards. And I thought I would be deployed immediately or activated immediately, but it didn't happen. Just there was talk of it. And so I remember that was, I mean, I couldn't breathe very good either. I thought I was getting asthma, and really looking back, it was because, you know, it was stressful, right? And
Very
so
much.
finally I kept on working out, taking care of myself, and that went away, thank goodness. I was like, I'm too young to have asthma, right? No, it doesn't run in my family. But then, so I went, I was activated for National Ground Intelligence Center, went there, worked for a year and a half. Then my unit was deployed, was activated to the whole unit to provide products for the National Ground Intelligence Center. So I did that. Then after that, I worked for Foreign Military Studies Office. I was on active duty, and I worked for them, I think, for a total of about 4 years, providing products that they wanted. These were unclassified products. And then in 2007, before 2007, I believe, an old boss of mine now, he's a retired general. He can't keep General Young, Bo Young. And he said, hey, I want you to take a command, battalion command. It's in Austin. We need somebody in that area. I said, no, it's okay. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm happy in my unit. And he said, no, we really do need you. Just think about it. I said, okay. So I thought about it, talked to my family, and I knew there was I had a good chance of getting the battalion deploying, but I'm like, nah, maybe not, whatever. So I took it, right? And sure enough, about 2 months later, we get paperwork, hey, the battalion's deploying. But the good thing is we knew when it was. So we had time to train. So I got to train the battalion, train with the battalion and go with the battalion, kind of like a cohort. And so that was a good thing. And so, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And we had a lot of things to do. We had a lot of training. And then 2009 is, when we did deploy to Afghanistan, and we entered theater in, I believe it was mid-October, and we came out of theater about a year later. It was the end of August, I believe. Yeah. 2010.
Monica, would you talk to us about being a battalion commander in Afghanistan, and kind of maybe starting with what was the battalion's role in Afghanistan when you went over, like what that mission was?
Okay, so our role was, we were the only military intelligence battalion in Regional Command East. And so we had 20 HUMINT teams. We had 5 multifunctional teams. We had 45 soldiers that were SIGINT personnel. We also had 4 HUMINT teams that did forward operations on the detention facilities. I believe that's all we had. We were authorized 290 soldiers. We deployed with 267. And so we provided these teams were all throughout the 30 forward operating bases and command outposts in RC East. So we were dispersed in a large area, and those teams supported the brigades that owned that sector and worked in it.
Okay.
And so then you asked me about battalion commander, or?
Yeah, so as the battalion commander, Monica, like what were you kind of doing on a daily basis, or what was your task? Like talk to us about what the battalion commander does.
Okay, so the battalion commander basically responsible for the health, welfare, maintenance, morale of the unit. In a pre-deployment, we're responsible for training the battalion for the wartime mission. We also are responsible for training and mentoring and guiding the company commanders and the staff. So those are the major things that I did in pre-deployment, as well. I can't want to go say that I was one of the few female battalion commanders before deploying in the Military Intelligence Readiness Command in the United States. There weren't too many, but there were some of us. Then when I got in theater, I didn't see any female battalion commanders, or really very few 06s. And even in those 30 different FOBs and COPs, I was just one of few. I didn't know it would be like that, but it was. Right. But that's okay. Yeah, so that's it. In my daily activities is, I got up early, made coffee, read the Bible a little for just 15 minutes, did some prayers, worked out, then went to chow, grabbed some food, breakfast and lunch to go, and then I'd attend we had a daily meeting, and we would go morning meeting. So we'd go over the missions that had occurred that our teams had participated on, as well as we went over the missions that they were going to do that day. And it was good to know what they were doing and about what time they would be finished, how long, right? And so, that was a really good focus for me those soldiers that were dispersed. I also would, go to some meetings with the higher headquarters, or, maybe meet with some brigade commanders, just take care of issues if that arose. I would always eat dinner at the chow hall with people. That was kind of like, I guess, my time to eat with other people and kind of relax, and then go back to work. And I usually left the office about 8:30 and went back to my hooch.
Monica, and you touched on it a little bit, you got over there and there really wasn't a lot of like other 06, females and stuff that you were seeing, or, women in that battalion commander role. What was that like you to be the battalion commander, as a female, overseeing such a large area and all of these troops and the missions and everything? What was that like for you?
Well, it was a little bit weird. I thought I didn't realize I would be the only one. But I mean, the last 6 weeks of my deployment, there was another female battalion commander that came in. So I was like, oh, good to see you for 6 weeks. I'll be out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But, I did have some soldiers, they, like one female, she's like, kind of like I was a rock star, I'm not, but she was, I've never seen an 06 female. Like, oh, here, I'm like, well, I'm just kind of not like everybody else, but I just have this rank. But I did, I guess, it was a little bit difficult as far as I felt like I stood out, but I guess I've always kind of felt that way in the military, like especially at West Point. So I guess I'm used to it, being a pioneer. But, you just think about, you're trained to do it, and you just do your job and don't think about that, and do your best. And it was a very rewarding job, a difficult job. I'm not going to say it wasn't difficult. You lay your head on the pillow at night and sometimes some tears stream down because you're, I guess the stress, but you just kind of deal with it because everybody else is going through the same thing. And that's a wonderful thing. Like, not wonderful, but it does,
right. It
bonds people.
Yeah. It's
but it was a super misery.
But I mean, like you're saying, though, it does give you that connection to everybody else. And I think there is, at least for myself, I think there was some comfort in knowing that, right when you lay down your head at night, and right, like those tears or like the stress and just the emotions of the day kind of come out. It's like everybody else is feeling this in their own way too, like when we stop, whenever that is, from a day, from a mission, there's definitely a time of reflection that rolls over you, or emotions of the day. So I want to expand on that a little bit more with you, Mana, because for me it was different. I was obviously a junior enlisted soldier when I was in Iraq, and so I was in a 300-man transportation company. Not a lot of females, but there was a few other females on the road with me. We were all very tight, so the camaraderie was really there. And I know there's a separation, between enlisted and officers. What is the camaraderie like in the female officer corps?
Well, I think it's good. I've always experienced close, good relationships ever since I was in the military with, female officers. And I've still got great friends from when I was a lieutenant, cadet, everything that I still see today. The thing that changed throughout the years for me was the higher up in rank you go, well, there's less of a pool for me to have camaraderie with, right?
Right.
And so that was difficult, and I didn't realize. I always heard that, oh, it's lonely at the top, but I'm like, yeah, there's some truth that rings out about that. But I know. Look, there was close camaraderie, it looks like, between the females in our unit. And to be honest with you, I didn't. I just communicated with all levels, everybody, because you gotta communicate, right? You gotta release stress and talk to people, and cry on their shoulders sometimes if you have to. I mean, I'm not, that was especially after Corporal death. But it turned out being just everybody, that we bond with.
Monica, would you talk to us a little bit about being a mother and being in a war zone and what that is like?
Sure. I was so focused on my mission and the daily activities that I really didn't have time to worry about the kids or what was going on at home. And thankfully, though, my husband, I knew was with them. He had retired in 2009, shortly after I deployed. I mean, he retired on purpose so he could have more time with the kids. He was in Army active duty. And then my mom helped out a lot, as well as my sister. My sister lived at my house. So I wasn't worried about the kids. And I know from experience that and you probably have the same experience as well. When you're in theater, you're not worried about yourself. Yeah. You just aren't. No. You're so busy. You're doing your mission, but your family sure is worried. So when when I got home, my daughter's like, "Mom, I was so worried about you," and I didn't realize how much. And maybe it's good that you don't realize it because you just got to focus on what's going on. But yes, I think it's much harder on the family. And I got the experience. My husband deployed, and it was very hard on me versus I don't think it was as hard on him. So I just knew it would be that way, and it was. Yeah. And your family, they suffer. They're under stress, probably more stress than we are.
That's absolutely true. I mean, they suffer, a great deal. I was very young when I went to Iraq. I was 18, and I mean, it was horribly rough on, well, both my parents, but primarily my mother. But I remember that there's almost like, or at least from where I was, 18, 19 years old, definitely kind of disconnected from back home because I had to be so focused, on the missions and the convoys and just surviving the day and getting through the next day. Like that was always kind of the priority. But our families back at home, they certainly suffer a great deal, during that time. Monica, you were the battalion commander of Corporal Chris Coughlan, who Catch a Lift was founded in memory of. Would you talk to us about some of the changes you witnessed in the battalion in the aftermath of Corporal Coughlan's death?
Sure. It was a tragic, terrible event. I believe it was only 10 days after we entered theater. And it was hard to overcome. 2 weeks, it was like a dark cloud hanging over us. And every one of us mourned. But we had to move on, right? Because we had a lot of other, we've got a very important mission. And so one of the things, I think the first thing that really lifted us was about 2 months after that happened, they had a 5K run on Bagram. And so we had a soldier, his wife made t-shirts for us. And so we ran that as a group, and we did this in memory of Corporal Coughlan. And this is the t-shirt that she had made.
Wonderful.
Lynn had that painting made. And then on the back, it had, his name and death day. So that was just a good bonding thing that we did. And we felt good because we were honoring his memory. And then I think that also that everybody, because he couldn't carry out the mission and do what he's trained to do, that we did it in his memory. And we worked harder, over 100%. And I got very good comments about our intel teams and their performance. And several times people said they were performing even better than the active duty intelligence teams. And then I know that we did that in order to do it because he couldn't, right? Just give it our all. So that's.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Monica. Monica, last question I kind of want to ask you about Afghanistan. What do you remember most about it, looking back all these years later?
There's a lot of things I remember, a lot of snippets and everything. They just they kind of pop up every so often. The best memory that I have, is not going to say the bad memory, but this is a best one. Is I used to travel as a battalion commander and see the troops on the different FOBs and COPs, and it was so nice to see what they did, what they worked. They did great things. I love getting briefings from them of what they were working on, the great things that they did, rolling up IED networks, saving lives.
Right.
And so that was the most rewarding thing for me. And because it confirmed what these people were saying, and their attitude was really good. So the soldiers, so that was the best thing. Yes. And also, I just want to say that intelligence is very important. People maybe don't realize it. Being in Afghanistan, seeing it firsthand of the impact that Intel does. That was it. That's what we do it for.
Did that feel almost full circle for you, Monica?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to deploy and to do that. And it was full circle. Yes, it was very rewarding, very difficult. But that's what we train for. And that's our mission. to see.
For sure.
Yeah. And I had other soldiers say that too. They just loved it. You know, they were, not that they loved
it. Yeah.
But they were very essential.
Right. Monica, I want to ask you a bit, about perception of female soldiers. How have you seen the perception of female soldiers change throughout the years of your career?
Okay, so as I told you, in 1980, I was one of the first classes at West Point, and it was not easy. You knew people didn't want us there for whatever reason. I just kind of brushed it off like, whatever, But we were pioneers, right? It's always hard to be a pioneer, one of the first.
Right.
And so, but I've seen that they've really progressed. Their females are much more confident. There is a difference. And because they're not pioneers anymore and the military is used to them and they just do an outstanding job. And I think the key thing though that I see is just confident, right? Confidence. That's a great thing to have.
Yeah. Monica, you had a long career in the Army as an officer. You led troops at all levels. Has your leadership style changed through the years that you've noticed?
Maybe. I mean, I did make some tweaks to it, and I remember as a first lieutenant, my company commander said, hey, you need to be more aggressive and assertive. And I said, okay, and that was a good thing because I am naturally a shy person. So that was good advice. I did try to incorporate that into, my leadership. And as well as I did try to sometimes change me, right? I'd lower my voice and, talk loud on it, but that didn't really feel like me. I mean, I tried it, but I think the best thing when I started just being me, right? Everybody's different. Every leader is different. They have a different way that they lead, right? But they're all, hopefully they're all good. They do a good job doing it a different way. So once I realized, you just got to be comfortable and do your best and what you're trained. And then I kind of relaxed about it.
Looking back over your career in the Army, Monica, what are you most proud of?
Well, there's a lot of times the moments that I'm proud. I did a lot of things, and I enjoyed all of it. I did enjoy most of it. Yeah, I mean, I was in intelligence. That's what I wanted to do. I was in the Army. It's a natural, I guess, for me to be in the Army. I look back, I'm like, yep, the Army's. I would have not gone any other branches. Army was, and so. But obviously the most to me rewarding was the battalion command because it was what I was trained to do, and it was good to do that mission.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you for sharing that. Monica, talk to us about your transition from a colonel in the Army back into the civilian world. What was that like for you?
It was a transition. I went through it, right? I think you're going to, and you're like. I went home to Texas, and I didn't know what I was going to do. In fact, I think I sat watching the TV for about 3 months, right? I mean, that was a long time, maybe not that long. I was like, okay, I got to get out of my house. I got to, do something. So I got involved in the community. At first I thought I wanted to do politics, be in politics. I'm like, no, politics is not for me. Let somebody else do it, but not me. Not passionate about it. I'm lucky we're on 4 acres. So I have 3 horses, 4 goats, a couple of chickens, dog and cat. I got a veggie. We grow veggies year round. So I got involved in that but because I wasn't as busy at time to learn for when I get old, right?
Yeah.
That I have something to do, but I knew that wasn't the end. And then so I used my GA bill. I'm using my GA bill right now, and I'm getting a Master of Science at Texas A&M in analytics. And
wonderful.
I graduate in May, so I'm happy about that. It's been a 2-year program.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's terrific.
Thanks. And I have a small business, 5 Stars Analytics. And so I'm an owner of that. And I've always wanted to do that as well. My husband and I used to talk about doing that before I got off active duty, having a business together. Right now, he's not in my business yet, but my goal is to get it big enough to grow it enough so he can.
Yeah.
But we do we have a couple of federal contracts with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We're looking at state contracts and I do have done some civilian work as well. It's some civilian sector work. So, but it's only been in business for 2.5 years. So, but
okay. That's very exciting.
Oh, and I also have 2 grandkids. Sorry, I got to mention them. I have 2
my gosh. How old are the grandkids?
Sadie is 2.5 and Hudson just was born 2 weeks ago. So.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's terrific. Oh my gosh. So you are very busy. You are very busy now.
Yeah.
School, you have a business, family, the grandchildren. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I don't recommend it to anybody. I don't. But I wanted to use that GI Bill, and it's a good thing I'm doing it, but that's not easy. I cannot. Yeah. This degree ends. I'm done.
Yeah. I want to ask you in regards to the transition process, because, like all of us, you went through that too, do you have any thoughts just kind of in general, how the transition process can be improved for our nation's veterans?
Yes, I do. And first I want to talk about when you get your disability, right? Well, my husband, I saw the difference. I'm a reservist. I came off as a part-time reservist.
Yep.
Versus looking at my husband and how he was treated on his disability. My husband, they had a counselor. They looked through all of his paperwork with him and helped him out immensely, right? Just guided him through the process before he left active duty. Me as a reservist, it was on my own. I mean, I had to locate all my medical records, look through them, and then I couldn't. It's a hard process to navigate. You can't do it on your own. So I went to the So I went to the Veteran Service Office in Williamson County, and they helped out a lot. So finally, I did that, but that was not easy. And another thing that was not easy, and it takes a long time, right? I mean, I guess I'm glad I had some time after retirement that I was slow so I could do that. And the other thing was my retirement points as a reservist. They were messed up. I had, everything's online, and I had years that I wasn't getting credited. And so I had to thankfully, as a lieutenant, they told me a long time ago, save every LES, leave and earning statement, and every active duty order, everything, because they're going to mess it up. They were right. I had boxes of stuff, and I'm glad I kept it. So I did it all myself. It took a long time. And this is kind of an irritating thing. It's like, if I didn't fix it, if I didn't have the gumption to do it, they wouldn't care. I would be, I wouldn't be getting compensated for, my time. And that's kind of irritating. But I did, put it, so that was kind of frustrating, but if you do it and you're going to do it, have to do it. I didn't want to have to do it, but oh, well, that's the way it is.
Yeah. I can certainly echo with you. I was a National Guard soldier myself, and in particular, our transition off of active duty and just back into the civilian world looks much different than an active duty soldier's. And I dealt with that same thing as far as having, here's all your paperwork, go draw medical records. Like, you have to figure it out on your own. Unfortunately, and what I went through myself, I was not physically or mentally in a capacity I could do that. I was fortunate. My husband was able to advocate for me in that way and help me. But I mean, if you're not able to do it yourself and you don't have someone to advocate for you and get this taken care of, I mean, our veterans can end up in a world of hurt. It's definitely a significant thing.
It is, and it's also sad to see that there's people, that reservists in particular, who just don't do anything, and they don't ever get compensated. And I tried to talk them into listen, maybe you don't want the money or the disability, but you may need it, or give what you get to charity, right? I mean, you deserve it. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
No, it's a good reminder, and I think anytime we can put that out, to the community, definitely, if you're not able to advocate for yourself, get with your VSO, or there's a lot of great individuals that can help you in that manner. So, Monica, I wanted to ask you too, what have you taken from your career as a leader in the Army and taken, now into, your business, the 5-star analytics and such? Like, what have you been able to carry over?
Well, see, as far as the as an intelligence officer, I've noticed that everyone doesn't think like me. You think, why are they thinking a different way? And then I realized, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been trained to be an analyst, so I just do it all the time, right? I'm analyzing. I'm not saying that's a good thing. That's probably not a good thing, but it's just me. So that's one thing that's carried over. My daughter says, Mom, you analyze everything. I'm like, I know it. And then also though, a good thing though, I tried to have transition what I did on active or in the military into this business 5 stars analytics. And so what I did is kind of the same, a little bit more technical, but looking at patterns, history. In this case, I use data and then going into doing your predictive models, and you're trying to predict the future, right? And in my business's case, it's usually for a business to answer a business question. But it's the same type of thing that you did in intelligence. You're looking at the patterns of history, you're gathering the information, and you're trying to make a prediction for the commander and the soldiers, to help in combat to save lives or whatever. So sure, to make it, to change the outcome of the situation in a positive way. So yeah, that's how I realized that.
That's terrific. Monica, the last question I want to ask you about today is the Catch a Lift Fund. Would you talk to us a little bit about the positive impact you've witnessed Catch a Lift have on the lives of our nation's combat wounded veterans?
Oh, absolutely. And it's so easy to see for me, I've always been physically active, tried to be. And what I've seen throughout the years is that the physical fitness, when you see somebody adopt a physical fitness program and they're not in shape or they have some medical situations, you see that their mental outlook improves, their physical fitness improves their level, as well as sometimes they're going to get off of those prescription medicines. And you just see them lose weight, become healthy. And you're like, wow, that's amazing how that happens, right? And so when Catch a Lift is the same kind of fun thing, right? You have soldiers that were used to having a routine, physical fitness routine, but when they get off active duty, well, that routine is gone. There's nobody to tell you to work out, to PT test, all that. And so the void that Catch a Lift, obviously you guys know all about, is that you fill that void and you help those soldiers. And then to see those soldiers that I'm sure you have, or the people that would be in the military, to improve so much, right? And make a huge difference in their lives positively. And I think that's great. And I also think that, you can see Corporal Coughlan in on this, right? Because he was leading soldiers in physical fitness. He was an E4, and yet he was there leading the way, those young soldiers, because he was very physically fit and he was very positive, and they looked up to him. And so I see him, even though he's not here, looking at it and say, yeah, come on, you can do it, keep on. And people, so this organization, he lives on through this organization. And I'm good to see that Lynn set it up. I saw her after we came back, after the deployment, met with her. And she told me what she wanted to do. And I was like, wow, that sounds great, but can she do it, right? You always wonder,
yeah,
right. She did it. You guys
did do it.
Yeah. And so that's just a wonderful thing to see that. And it's good. And so her brother's living through her because she's doing this, and it's all connected.
Yeah, it truly is. And Chris has certainly given life to so many of us. I know I speak for so many of my brothers and sisters, the Catch a Lift Fund and what it stands for. And Chris's memory is very alive for each and every one of us. And, we still definitely look to him as that example of that physical fitness. And, through physical fitness, one can reach their highest potential. And that's an absolutely beautiful thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. And your videos this last winter, I was kind of in a down period. I'm not sure, but they came in on my email, and I just watched. They made me motivated. I'm like, I got to work out. They really did. They did inspire me, and that's good. That's so good, because all of us need that, right? So it's good to watch those people inspire you. And when you guys contacted me a couple weeks ago, to remember about this, to do this, I'm like, oh, I got to start working out. Real. I do work out, but sometimes you get a little bit of a lull. So,
yeah.
But you guys inspired me. You didn't know it, but you did.
Well, that's terrific. I mean, we love hearing that, and we thank you so much, Monica, for coming on today with us and sharing your story and your light. And more than anything, thank you so much for your service to our great country. Truly, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And you too. Thank you for your service. Going into
thank you, Monica.
Not an easy thing, and going into Iraq is very difficult. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's it for this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. We will return next Wednesday at 1 Eastern Time with another new episode. Thank you again, Monica, for sharing your story and your light with us all today. Absolutely terrific. Thank you to ClearBridge for all your support of all things Catch a Lift. A huge thank you to Lynn Coughlan, Henry Pomper, and Kaylee Nasiri for all of the work you do to make this podcast possible, and to the entire Catch a Lift team. Until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.